Hey guys, welcome to Digit.in, and this is our review of the Oppo F5, the 6GB variant. Now the Oppo F5 is slim and sleek with a shiny chrome red finish housing a taller Univision display. But all is not what meets the eye here. Even though the Oppo F5 launched just 6 months after its predecessor, that too starting at the same price, there seems to be an underlying sense of compromise. That's primarily because the Oppo F5 ditches the metal unibody design for a matte plastic one. The chrome red finish tries to hide that fact, and at first glance it would be difficult to tell. There's also a silver strip running at the top and the bottom of the phone, imitating the antenna lines of the metal body. Unlike most phones, the fingerprint sensing plate is almost at the same plane as the rest of the body. It doesn't sink as deep as in other phones, and finding it is an acquired sense. The compromise becomes even clearer after a few months of use. The polycarbonate body starts showing signs of wear and tear. The color chips away, leaving silver specks around the body. You will have to slap on a case to the phone if you wish to preserve it. Oppo somewhat makes up for the downgrade in the build quality with a taller 6-inch display and a wider 18:9 aspect ratio, packing a 2160 by 1080 pixel resolution. The screen takes up most of the 6.1-inch body with minimal top and bottom chins and extremely thin side bezels. It's quite minimalist from the front as well. So much so that the notification LED is missing along with the physical capacitive buttons. While the latter is acceptable, the former is a sore pain. There's no always-on display to compensate for it, and you are forced to turn on the screen to check for messages. Quite frankly, Oppo's design doesn't make much sense. The build quality does not justify the 24,990 price tag it carries. The closest competitor of the phone is the 4-eyed Honor 9i, which is quite sturdy and looks more refined. Coming back to the display, icons and text looks crisp, but the color reproduction seems a bit off. At full brightness, the colors tend to be quite oversaturated. The green color of the dialer app icon is a clear indicator of this. The Oppo F5 uses an IPS LCD panel which brings in the advantage of good viewing angles and better sunlight legibility. The whiter points on the display is on the cooler side though. There's a distinct blue tint over the display. If you can get over that, the Oppo F5 has a good enough panel. Oppo does give you the option to tweak the color temperature, but you're better off keeping it at the default settings. Moving to the camera, the 16-megapixel shooter at the back comes with an f1.8 aperture and face detection autofocus, but it's quite a hassle to keep the frame in focus. The autofocus of the phone is very unstable, and more often than not, you will find focusing mechanism go halfway before starting all over again. But when it does manage to focus though, the 16-megapixel shooter takes shots that are quite decent. The rear camera takes well-detailed photos, although the dynamic range leaves a lot to be desired. The colors are especially nice, but the contrast seems to be a bit too high. Also, under harsh lighting, there is significant highlight clipping. You will find photos taken under poor lighting having grains, and the details are inconsistent and a lot of blur in photos, especially if it's moving objects you are trying to capture. Oppo claims the phone uses complex algorithms to accentuate human beauty in all its forms. The F5 supposedly uses artificial intelligence to study around 200 positioning spots to highlight facial landmarks and contours to create a perfect, refined and natural selfie. However, the results are anything but natural. In reality, you will get a selfie that looks a bit too perfect, almost photoshopped. The algorithms are quick to recognize your face though, and it works overtime to remove every spot and blemish from your face, rendering a flawless portrait, much like what happens in the cover page of a fashion magazine. The phone also has a depth mode in the front camera for portrait selfies with the background blurred. It would have been a nice feature to have if not the algorithms in its camera blurring everything out too aggressively. When we talk about performance, the phone uses a mid-range octa-core Helio P23 SoC coupled with 6GB of RAM and 64GB of storage. That's just about enough firepower for a device priced at 24,990 rupees. The MediaTek chip can perform most tasks without slowing down, but you will find occasional lags and stutters. If not for the heavily customized UI, the Oppo F5 would have been quite the performer. Clearly, it's not the fastest phone in the price. The Moto X4 with the Snapdragon 630 is visibly faster and more fluid. What the Helio P23 does bring though is superior communication hardware. The P23 supports dual 4G LTE and dual SIM, dual standby. That means the phone supports dual VoLTE as well. Pitting the phone against the Sony Xperia XA1 Ultra, which was powered by the Helio P20 chipset, it's clear that the new chipset in the Oppo F5 doesn't bring much of a performance upgrade. The raw performance may pit the Oppo F5 higher than most Qualcomm-powered devices, but the devil lies in the details. As per the 3D Mark Slingshot benchmark test, which puts the raw power to work, the Oppo F5 falls far behind the competition. Gaming performance too was commendable, although games took a bit longer to load. Although, as the storage gets filled and there are more apps running on the phone with notifications flooding the lock screen, the phone might not square up to the task. If you are copying Apple, it's better to go all the way, and that's exactly what Oppo has done. By making use of a dormant Android feature, Oppo has tried to match up Apple's Face ID but falls far behind. The phone makes use of Android's trusted face feature to bring face unlock. Since it only uses the front camera, the facial recognition can easily be tricked and it's not very secure. The Oppo F5 packs a 3200 mAh battery to power you through the day, and for the most part, it does last around a day. On our benchmark test for the battery, the Oppo F5 lasted for 5 hours and 28 minutes of intensive activity with the screen on. By that metric, you can expect a day's worth of average use. The Oppo F5 is a good-looking impersonation of a reliable Android phone. It might feel smooth and slick, but a few weeks of using the phone will change that impression. The 6GB memory will keep the phone from being outdated for another year, but the fact that it comes with an older Android version already makes it outdated. Oppo anyway never had a good track record of providing regular Android updates. Moreover, the AI features that Oppo F5 boasts of doesn't do anything good. It performs the same Photoshop trickery that beauty magazines get called out for. You're better off keeping it natural, to be honest. The display is perhaps the only redeeming factor of the phone. Rest of the phone is one compromise after another. Thank you for tuning in, and for more videos like this one, you can subscribe to our channel.